The House will come to order. Call on the member from Ramsey, Representative Moeller, to introduce and speak about our guests in the chamber today, the University of Minnesota's dance team. Representative Moeller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Performing as Team USA, the University of Minnesota dance team took home a gold medal for pom and a silver medal for jazz at the International Cheer Union World Championships on April 25th. Minnesota was selected to represent the U.S. national team in February following their 23rd national championship since 2003, the most in the nation. This was their 4th gold medal, beating out Japan and Mexico. And if you haven't seen the Gopher dance team perform, I highly recommend that you do. Their synchronized turns are unmatched, and their athleticism, grace, precision, and teamwork make it evident why they are world champions. Governor Walz issued a proclamation honoring the team today, and as the First Lady just said to them, when people think of Minnesota, they will think dance because of the incredible talent and contributions of this team. Please stand and join me in giving a Minnesota hats off to thee to the University of Minnesota dance team with a M-I-N-N-E-S-O-T-A. Minnesota, Minnesota, yay, Gophers!
Reports from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Long from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bill to be placed on the calendar for the day for Friday, May 9th, 2025, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bill. Senate file number 1832.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for today is House File 2442. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 2442, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to energy, appropriating money for energy and renewable development account programs, the second engrossment.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Acomb, who will explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm honored to be co-chair of the House Energy Committee, a committee that I've been on since I was first elected in 2019. The Energy Committee overall represents a small portion of our state budget, but it has a really big impact on all of us. Within our jurisdiction is the Division of Energy Resources at the Department of Commerce, the Public Utility Commission, along with 2 special revenue accounts, which are the Petro Fund and the Renewable Development Account. House File 2442 represents the Lights On bill and adheres to the 0 target that our committee was given. While there may be some missed opportunities that we could have addressed this session, what we did accomplish in this bill is to protect the many advancements we've made over the last several years, making Minnesota a leader in the Midwest and nationally in terms of renewable energy production, the transition away from fossil fuels, and addressing our changing climate. We knew coming into this session with an evenly split House and evenly divided committees that our work would be challenging. Our committee heard a variety of bills that represent the many urgent needs, potential solutions, and emerging technologies. I was disappointed that we were not able to get agreement and include some of those policies, many of which had bipartisan support, into this committee bill. The most important of the issues for me has been addressing the new data centers that require large amounts of energy who are knocking on Minnesota's door. They want to come to our state because they share our commitment to clean energy, and we have broad access to the water resources they need for cooling. In order to protect our state and local communities, we need to pass a strong data center bill that will protect our natural resources, protect ratepayers from footing the bill for the new energy and transmission needs, and ensure that facilities will not derail us from meeting our 100% clean energy goals. I look forward to continuing to work on this issue and other unmet policy needs with colleagues going forward. We can all agree that Minnesota needs to provide energy that is safe, reliable, sustainable, and affordable. Our state is one of 15 other states that is part of MISO, which is the Mid-Continent Independent Systems Operator who manages our power grid. They informed us this session in committee that Minnesota has the most reliable system of any state within its service territory, and we learned that our electric rates are below the national average. In other good news, I've distributed, and you should have on your desks, or hopefully it's coming around, a fact sheet. Looks like Carrie has one, so that's great. That was prepared by Clean Energy Economy Minnesota and the Business Council for Sustainable Energy. The fact sheet and linked report demonstrate Minnesota's leadership in the renewable energy transition and does a great job telling the story of our many successes. Some of them include the fact that we are 53% of our electricity is carbon-free, compared with just 42% nationally. Our greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced by 52% from 2005 levels, compared with only a 38% reduction nationally. Minnesota is becoming more energy independent, requiring less energy from other states in Canada, which is important as President Trump considers tariffs that could impact current international energy supply agreements. And finally, renewable energy production in Minnesota currently makes up a third of our generation, while coal has dropped from 43% to 20% in just the last decade. All of this is good news for Minnesota. In the energy world, you often hear that the cheapest energy is that which you do not use. So making energy efficiency a priority is an important strategy as we look to make utility rates as affordable as possible for Minnesotans. This morning, I was disappointed to read in the Star Tribune that President Trump is working to dissolve the Energy Star rating system, which is a popular program that's been around for decades and one that we're all familiar with. It certifies the energy efficiency of home appliances and saves consumers more than $40 billion each year, simply by providing us information on how we can use less electricity for the same needs. That's $40 billion annually. We should be paying attention to this important information. There is nothing partisan about helping consumers on how they reduce their energy use and save our hard-earned money. I know there's others that want to speak on the bill, so in wrapping up here, Madam Speaker, I want to close with this. Coming into session, my highest priority was to pass a budget that would prevent a government shutdown. While there is much work to do in addressing our energy needs and the impact of our changing climate that are not included in this bill, what I feel really good about in passing House File 2442 off the House floor today we will be one step closer to ensuring our state government continues working for us and for our state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Lyon, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. It's a beautiful day in Minnesota. I would ask for your support for House File 2442 in the fact of what it potentially could do. This bill could have potentially got net metering reform in the state of Minnesota. This bill could have potentially done many other good things. Ended the moratorium on nuclear energy in the state of Minnesota. It could have done a number of great reforms that, quite frankly, this state needs. We live in an environment of 2040, carbon-free. And it's time for this legislature to genuinely look at its role in the environment of a bill that will lead us down that path. We can disagree or agree whether or not that should have been put into law or not, and the disadvantages or the advantages that could lead for Minnesota. But what we need to really look at is, what is our role as legislators? Is it our job to dictate how we get there? And one of the areas that I think we really missed an opportunity in this particular bill, and we're hoping to potentially bring it out of conference, is really looking at the rates that we pay across the state for energy. And when it comes to nuclear energy, it is potentially going to be a growing part of our energy portfolio when it comes to base load energy throughout our country. It's carbon free. It's not necessarily totally free of issues, but it does solve a lot of the problems that some folks think we have. And looking at that and trying to make Minnesota a state that is open for business for an all-above energy approach. We missed that. It is our hope that we can look at those issues when we bring it into conference. This bill is a lights-on bill. It spends a little bit more than I would like. But in order to move this bill forward, I would recommend a green vote today to get this bill to conference committee. This bill does not spend RDA money. And why is that important? RDA fund is a tax that's levied on ratepayers across the state and XL territory. And it's millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars so far over its lifetime, and potentially going to be hundreds of millions of dollars more into the future. And when we're asked why does Minnesota have some of the highest industrial rates of electricity, it's primarily because we're cost shifting into those industries so that they pay more, so that residentials will pay less. And one of the areas that we do hear about, why on earth are we raising taxes on the cost of energy on something that is carbon free? And I ask this legislature to genuinely take a look upon itself to say, is it time to eliminate the unnecessary tax on nuclear energy and nuclear cash storage as our state moves forward? I think we're making genuine bounds when it comes to nuclear energy, when it comes in the state of Minnesota, even within the DFL party. You removed that portion from your state's party platform, and I think in the last year or two. And so I think in generally we're making some good inroads when it comes to what it means and what it's like to be energy independent. Oftentimes we're told that Minnesota needs to become energy independent. We're not energy independent. We're part of the MISO grid. We're dependent on energy generation, interconnected with other states, other countries as well. And so we do not want to create an island amongst ourselves, because we want to be good teammates with those other states and those industries. And that part of being a good teammate is also making sure that we are, one, friendly, two, have a regulatory environment that encourages development, whether that's a digital economy, whether that be production, whether that be industrialization. And one of the things that we need to be looking at is, what is the potential for industry in Minnesota? One of the areas that we've seen a huge downfall, we just heard in northern Minnesota, when it comes to industrial demand, they have two options. We're told that energy you don't use is some of the most energy efficiency that you can do. And what we're finding is that if you're a large industrial customer, such as steel in northern Minnesota, when we do have some of the highest energy rates for steel production in the country, what can we do about that? Is it add mandates? Is it add cost? Is it driving development? Is it driving generation outside of our borders so that we can say on paper that we're carbon free? But all we've done is shifted those investments and those opportunities outside of our state. So I would plead with you members, as you, whether you vote red on this bill tonight or this afternoon, or you vote green, that fundamentally energy does play an important part of our economy. The decisions we make here as legislatures has a big part to do with what our energy future, our economic opportunity has. It was talked a little bit about what is our role when it comes to development. What is it, where does the hockey puck go? I would encourage members as this bill moves forward that it can change quite a bit. It can change to the positive, it can change to the negative, but fundamentally talk to your constituents. Ask them, would they rather have their rates go up or go down? The green energy economy that we're talking about happens to have a really low point right now when it comes to cost, but I can guarantee that generation cost, and as this thing ramps up, it's going to be more and expensive. In other words, what we're saying is a lot of the low-hanging fruit has already been plucked, and we're benefiting that. But as we're moving up the chain for this green energy solution here in Minnesota, it's going to get more and more expensive. We've read articles that potentially, because of this green energy dream that's being moved forward, that our rates potentially could double if we also industrialize. And so if we're shutting iron-producing plants down in northern Minnesota, we accomplish that we will consume less electricity. If we create a situation where one of the most expensive places to do business, whether that by taxation, regulation, or energy consumption, or labor, all of those things add up to say, are we going to be the friendliest place for businesses to come as they begin the process of reintegrating their business models back to America? And that is really one of the questions that we must ask ourselves. As businesses leave China, Southeast Asia, and as we reindustrialize America and manufacturing, what role does Minnesota want to play in that game? We're not going to do it by scaring businesses out. We're not going to do it by having a controlled, top-down, St. Paul knows best attitude, but we need to allow the decision makers within the industries, the decision makers in the utilities to come up with the best plan that they see fit, that one, protects their customers, two, creates a situation in which they can deliver the most cost-effective energy to their customers. And oftentimes, I'm sad to say, that might mean we as legislators step aside and allow the market to work. And so this bill is not a perfect one. This bill may spend more than we'd like, but this bill does get us to conference committee, and I do applaud the Senate in a lot of the work that they did as they moved their bill out of committee. I think that was quality work. What that bill looks like foundationally as it moves out of finance, it can be debated whether that bill has improved or diminished, but it is our goal that we work closely with the Senate in capturing as many of those quality reforms that they were able to move forward in a bipartisan way. And so, members, I would encourage you to vote yes on this bill. And I would also be remiss to thank the hard work and dedication of all of our staff. Both the partisan and the nonpartisan really did a tremendous job. And while Representative Acomb and I maybe didn't always agree on the issues, I think we disagreed with a smile on our face. So thank you very much, and you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 2442.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, today we get to talk about energy, so I'm going to bring some energy to the room. We all use energy, and we all pay utility bills, or maybe some of you are off-grid. I've actually talked to a couple in this room who are maybe trying to do that. But one thing I always love to ask is the question, what is the cheapest and cleanest kilowatt hour of energy? It's the one you never use. It's energy efficiency, and so I'm going to talk a lot about energy efficiency. But I wanted to first thank the co-chairs for this bill, for bringing a clean, straightforward budget on energy, and it makes sure that we continue our long history of investing in energy efficiency. It's something that's smart for family budgets and for business bottom lines. It's good for our entire state. An independent review conducted by the Department of Commerce found that for every $1 spent on energy efficiency programs here in Minnesota returns $4 to the state's economy. And as you may know, energy efficiency initiatives actually came out of the oil crisis about 50 years ago. And luckily, bipartisan efforts have created widespread energy efficiency programs like Energy Star, which has become the backbone of many Minnesota programs like ECO, the Energy Conservation and Optimization Act, as well as the Weatherization Assistance Program. Energy Star was actually signed into law by the first President Bush, and its blue logo is recognized by 90% of Americans. It sets the standard that we rely on for efficient furnaces, for water heaters, for washing machines, you know, all those really sexy utility and appliances. So who among us can live without those appliances? Who wants to spend more on energy running those appliances than we have to? Annually, the program costs $32 million, but returns, as Chair Acomb said, $40 billion in utility savings. That's a 1,250% return on investment. That is an example of government working well and delivering for people. But unfortunately, the Trump administration is proposing to eliminate the agency that includes Energy Star. This matters to Minnesota and to the agency and program work in this bill. It matters to industries here, like window manufacturers Anderson and Marvin, with factories in Bayport and War Road. Recently, industry players, including the Chamber of Commerce, Bosch, Carrier, sent a letter to the administration for the continuation of this program, because it is a good non-regulatory collaboration between the private sector and federal government. Bipartisan lawmakers are against the privatization of Energy Star because they say doing so would lower standards. Minnesota would have a hard time delivering on all of these things in this bill without Energy Star. In a time when we all agree that demand for new energy generation is increasing, now is the time that we should speak up for federal programs that our state relies on and that focuses on the cheapest and cleanest kilowatt hour. I want to again thank the chairs for this bill that continues our leadership on energy efficiency and importantly accomplishes a thing that Minnesota is sent here to do, to keep our state running. So please vote green.
Recognize the member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm a little bit disappointed in that Minnesota is we're not deciding here to be a leader. With the small modular nuclear, we could get rid of some of the spent fuel in the storage casks. We could have localized power so we don't have the transmission loss. And this technology actually has been utilized for many decades. So frankly, we should be allowing for the best choices and implementations in our state. And frankly, the power grid, with all of the small muni coals that shut down, we'd be able to put in those modular nuclear and have localized power, wouldn't have to build new grid. The other thing is we're not making it promotional for developing hydrogen. The biggest thing with electric vehicles is the range. The new hydrogen engines, one truck was tested over 1,700 miles on a fill. 1,700 miles. We could also produce it regionally, because if you drive along and you see idle windmills, that's because the grid is full and they can't utilize the power. If we helped facilitate it, we could have electrolysis generating hydrogen production regionally across the state to help promote hydrogen for ag equipment and others, because then you wouldn't have to worry about having 8 tractors so that you could continue 24/7 planting crops or harvesting crops. We need new technology and to be open, and we haven't as a state. The other thing that I'm disappointed in is we continually talk about the global environment, but we do not realize that by doing it in the state of Minnesota, that is best, because we would do it cleaner and you don't have the transportation or the loss from transmission lines. So it's past time that Minnesota woke up, saw what was best in the future, and empowered our companies and our people to choose what is best. There are good things in this bill, but it's very short-sighted to me.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. While I am very excited to see this bill on the floor, I am deeply disappointed that it doesn't include any RDA spending. For any of you that aren't familiar with the RDA, or the Renewable Development Account, it was established in 1994 as part of a critical policy compromise that originated right here in the Capitol. Xcel Energy was seeking legislative approval to expand dry cask storage of spent nuclear fuel at Prairie Island Nuclear Power Plant, and that understandably raised a lot of concerns among lawmakers, environmental advocates, and most significantly, the Prairie Island Indian community. Rather than take an either-or approach, the legislature crafted a path forward that addressed both energy reliability and environmental responsibility. And that result was a requirement that Xcel make annual payments into a dedicated fund, the RDA fund, in exchange for the right to increase on-site nuclear waste storage. So it's not a tax, it's a fee that they are paying because they are allowed to store nuclear waste at a place where many people, including the folks who live there, objected to. But this compromise is an example of how we were able to take a thorny issue and turn it into an opportunity for renewable energy leadership. So yes, the RDA fund is funded by Xcel ratepayers. I am one of those. But this is not an exorbitant cost. In fact, it's a rate of 0.00109 cents per kilowatt hour. The amount an average customer pays varies based on how much energy they use, but according to Xcel, the average cost for a residential Xcel customer is about 80 cents a month. 80 cents, less than $10 a year. That 80 cents, though, is a great example of how a lot of small contributions by a large group of people can make a huge difference to our energy infrastructure and to our world. Since its inception, the RDA has directed over $200 million into projects that advance wind, solar, biomass, energy storage, and other clean energy technologies right here in Minnesota. And it's helped to fund early stage research, commercial scale deployment, and grid integration. And maybe most importantly, it's aided in job creation, especially in rural communities where renewable projects often take root. A couple of examples that the fund has been directed to some of your communities. $4.75 million has gone to Chair Swazinski's district to fund the Granite Falls Hydroelectric Dam. $2 million went to a community energy transition grants to help communities that were reliant on fossil fuel production transition to new industries. And that was used somewhat in Rep. Davis's district, in Otter Tail County, in Rep. Murphy's district, and in Benton County, where Rep. Wolgamott represents. Representative Anderson's district got to benefit from the RDA when the Morris campus of University of Minnesota got $10 million to establish their green ammonia pilot project. And back in 2021, we sent the money north, $5.5 million to be exact, when it supported the Mountain Iron solar manufacturing on the Iron Range. The RDA should be a bipartisan fund. Beyond dollars and projects, the Renewable Development Fund symbolizes something greater: Minnesota's proactive approach to balancing energy needs with environmental responsibility. It represents how a collaboration between utility companies, legislators, and communities can yield meaningful long-term benefits. And in case any of you are wondering, the folks in my district, even if the projects don't happen in my district, they are in support of them because it benefits them. Living in a low cost district, we bear the brunt of climate change. We bear the brunt of unclean water, unclean air. And it turns out water and air don't know the boundaries of the XL territory. So it doesn't matter if it's from the Iron Range, that water comes down to us. The air that is purer and more clean, we benefit from. And not just my district, all of our districts benefit from it. As we face the urgency of climate change, funds like the RDA are not just helpful, but essential. They ensure that we're not just talking about clean energy, but actively investing in it. I truly hope that as we move into the conference committee process with this bill, we consider utilizing renewable development account funding to continue moving Minnesota forward towards a smart, clean energy future. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Otter Tail, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to the committee. I thought we had a lot of respectful conversations back and forth. I think it was good. We learned a lot. We learned about data centers. We went on a site tour to learn more. We learned a lot about the nuclear moratorium. That was all good. I want to talk a little bit about some of the concerns I have with if we don't do our due diligence to the nth degree. And so I want to talk just a little bit about solar. And really these are some new things that came up more recently, but I want to talk about it. So I want to have you refer to the picture that I sent around. And that's a picture of a carrot. And that carrot has a wedding ring that grew around it. The carrot grew in it. So here's a concern that we have about solar. This is from, if there's glass found among or in potatoes during processing, companies like Simplot have to discard their entire product and conduct through inspections from the growers to prevent contamination. Simplot is the 54th largest private corporation in the world. This will be very hard on producers. We need to do our due diligence. 83% of the land, according to the American Farmland Trust, is going toward ag land for the solar developments. 83% of those solar farms are ending up on ag lands. And over half of that is some of our prime ag land. It should be no surprise that these are being located next to our trunks for electricity, and that's some of the most prime farm ground we have in the state of Minnesota. Solar panels contain toxic substances like cadmium, lead, and selenium. They can leach into the soil and leach into the groundwater. This is Michigan Whitetail Properties who talk about what's happened for wildlife when these things occur, posing environmental risks, especially panages that are damaged, or broken, or just plain mishandled. If they're mishandled, some of these toxic components can leach out and end up in our drinking water and end up in our soil. Ecosystems, wildlife, local communities depend on clean water. This can be important. I had a bill that wanted a 3/4 mile setback on wildlife areas, only state wildlife areas, so that if somebody shoots a goose and it ends up going over the solar farm and taking out a couple of panels, we don't have to worry about retiring that land from ag production because it was in ag production before we did it. And that farm is near Osakis, Minnesota, right outside of my area, a farm that I know well. I had a dairy supply business. I called on the neighbors of that farm. Research indicates that 7 years of land cover by solar panels significantly reduces the land's water retention capacity and disrupts natural soil fertility, rendering the soil infertile. We need to do our due diligence, folks. It's important. We've done our due diligence when we're looking at the nuclear moratorium. We've done it when we're looking at data centers. We need to make sure all our ducks are in a row when we're looking at solar. So that's just to plant the seed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. So first, I would also like to thank the folks in the committee, Vice Chair Murphy, Chair Swedzinski, and Chair Acomb. I do think we had a very civil conversation. We often disagree on things, but I appreciate the discussion. And Representative Murphy, I have to thank you for sharing this picture. I've never seen a ring grow around a carrot. So I am in support of this bill, and I urge everyone to vote green. I think having a lights on bill is really important to continue the work we're doing. It is unfortunate that we could not do more. In a situation now where our president has pulled us out of the Paris Climate Agreement, and now we are in conjunction with 3 other prominent countries, Iran, Libya, and Yemen, the 4 of us, we need to do more here. There are also recently some really troubling warning signs that are coming from the natural world. Last year, the carbon concentration in our atmosphere increased more than it ever has in a year. We've reached a level that hasn't been seen on Earth in 3 million years. And what folks think is happening is that the land mass of the Earth is no longer functioning as a carbon sink. With the droughts we're having, with the problems in rainforests, the land, by the way, which typically has soaked up 25% to 1/3 of the carbon we emit, is starting to turn into a net emitter. This is really dangerous. Closer, if you look within North America, a couple other things happened recently. There's a note that 3/4 of the bird species in North America are in decline. 3/4. Honeybee colonies this year are projected to decline by 70%. Now, these are climate impacts, and there are other things that impact these. But this is the Earth telling us that we must take this seriously. The Earth doesn't really care about our politics. Physics just happens. Even within Minnesota, we can look at things. If you looked at your homeowners insurance rates, they've been going up sky high over the past 10, 20 years. Talk to the insurance industry. Ask why. The answer is extreme weather caused by climate change. Other things. Winter tourism, take this in northern Minnesota. Minnesota is getting warmer, especially winter nights in the northern part of the state. Daily average minimum temperatures during winter have increased 7.3 degrees from 1895 to 2021 in northern Minnesota. Minnesota lakes have lost an average of a couple of weeks of ice cover in the past 50 years. The cycle of droughts and floods we're seeing certainly makes life harder on farmers. Lest we forget the air quality issues we had in the summer of 2023. And we were able this year, I think, Representative Myers brought forward a bill on a state fossil. What is projected to happen is that our state bird will be extinct in Minnesota over the coming decades if we do not change. The thing is, these impacts are mild compared to what is coming. I wish we could learn from our native relatives to think 7 generations into the future. Heck, perhaps we could just start with 1 or 2. What I really wish, my colleagues across the aisle, that we could start with a premise of that we have to decarbonize and then debate solutions. But instead, mostly what we get from you is how to reverse progress that we're making. HF 9 was going to kill or gut the 100% law. We've talked about net metering and community solar. The provisions there would kill those. Okay, replace with what? We are the envy of many states around the country for the terrific growth we've had in our solar industry. We heard proposals to raise taxes on EVs and stop progress on transportation decarbonization. The push to kill the renewable development account. Within there, Representative Hollins talked about some of the things that have been done, but things that we could be doing with those this year is more work on geothermal, on green ammonia, right? This is a bill from your side, decarbonizing fertilizer, creating a Silicon Valley for clean energy in Minnesota. Representative Acomb, you talked about business and new opportunities. There's tremendous stuff we could be doing. Green hydrogen, you also spoke about that. That's part of the RDA proposal for this coming year. And also waste and figuring out new approaches to it with an anaerobic digester. I think that was a proposal from Representative Johnson. So let's talk about the solutions. Where we need to be focusing on is things like buildings, which generate within buildings 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions. More energy efficiency, absolutely. We need to be talking about how we can help residents around the state make their homes more energy efficient and then help to electrify those. Now, by the way, when we do that, right, we are putting investment in communities in Minnesota that right now is going out of Minnesota because fossil fuels that we use to heat our homes or what are coming from outside Minnesota. So these are ways to revitalize communities as well. On the grid, instead of talking about how to killing net metering, let's talk about how to align the incentives of utilities and solar developers and then turn these small businesses loose. These would generate even more investments in greater Minnesota. Agriculture, we should be talking about soil health more and green fertilizer. Those have other benefits on the greenhouse gas side. Industrial decarbonization. So, you know, we could be a leader in green steel here, right? With more investments in renewables, green steel, green fertilizer, green cement. We have tremendous advantages in Minnesota from having a port in Duluth, from the renewable energy we have and the access to water. If we leaned into this together, there is so much more economic opportunity we could unlock. Now, separate from benefits on climate change, the other thing that this can do if we decarbonize is some really good things for Minnesotans. Air quality causes 4 million premature deaths a year around the world. 3,000 to 4,000 deaths in Minnesota are impacted by air quality. If we could decarbonize and not be burning fossil fuels, that would go down tremendously. Chair Swedzinski talked about costs of energy, and the renewables are going to be more and more expensive. That's just false. Once you put renewables in, you know what the cost of fuel is? It's zero. Renewables are the lowest cost of new energy right now. Now, nuclear is an interesting discussion, but if you talk nuclear and cost-effective in the same sentence, it's kind of ridiculous. Nuclear is tremendously expensive, but we can talk about that. You know, there's a lot of concern today about inflation. Let's look at the impact of fossil fuels on inflation. If you look at from World War II to today and look at every period of inflation, and this analysis was done by Moody's, every period of inflation was initiated and caused by the prices in fossil fuels. So by moving away, we will reduce a significant inflationary cost in our economy. Now, the other thing, which is why I think also this pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accord and this maniacal focus on drill, baby, drill from our president is just crazy, is one of the most exciting business opportunities of this century is renewables. It is $1.4 trillion today, growing to $2.5 trillion by 2033. And we in Minnesota can be an absolute leader in this. So I think there's so much more we can do. I'm excited to vote for this bill so we keep moving, hopeful that we can find ways to work on some of these opportunities, and concerned because you know, when this committee was called the Climate and Energy Committee, and this session it was changed to energy at the insistence of Republicans, and that in some sense it's whatever. I mean, I'd call it tiddlywinks if we could work together on it. I don't care. But the fact that not calling it climate change was a win for you, was something that you asked for, I think is especially because according to a University of Minnesota survey in 2023, 76% of residents are concerned about climate change. And if you talk to younger folks, it's even higher. Of Gen Zers surveyed, 85% are concerned. So thank you for this bill. I urge a vote green, and let's do better.
I recognize the member from Lyon, Representative Swazinski.
Vote green.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Acomb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for the comments and discussion today. I'd want to take a minute and just do some thank yous for our Team Energy and staff, especially nonpartisan staff, Ashley Ang and Bob Eloff, our Team Energy pages, Shelby and Michael. We had great GOP staff, Sharon Goblish, Indiana Smallman, and AJ Borowake, sorry, AJ. DFL staff, Declan McGuire, Eric Anderson, and Mike Molzon. And lastly, I want to take a minute and thank all the members of the committee. Really appreciate the perspectives and the voice you brought to our conversations. I do think that they were good. I especially appreciate the co-chairs, Representative Murphy and Representative Kraft, and particular in partnership with my co-chair across the way over there, Representative Swazinski. Thanks for your partnership in our committee this year. As many have said, I agree. I look forward to the opportunity to continue this conversation in the conference committee. I think there's some great opportunities that we can improve the bill and bring it back to the House even stronger. And with that, members, I please ask for a green vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the name of the member voting remotely.
Fogelman.
Go ahead.
Fogelman votes no.
Fogelman votes no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 112 yeas and 21 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 2115, an act relating to human services. The message is signed Thomas S. Bodern, Secretary of the Senate. Schomacker moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 2115, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 4 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
I recognize the member from Rock, Representative Schomacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I would not like to concur with the Senate's policy bill. Ours is better.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. Message from the Senate.
A message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 2434, an act relating to human services. Message is signed Thomas S. Bodern, Secretary of the Senate. Schomacker moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 2434, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 6 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
I recognize the member from Rock, Representative Schomacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I would also move to not concur on this one. This, members, as you may remember, what we voted on this bill on Monday. We had 109 votes going off the House floor for this one. As I look, the Senate got a whopping 35 for theirs. We have a much stronger position going into conference, and so I would like to take that stronger position and let the Senate know who the people's body really is. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. Announcement by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File Number 2115. Schomacker, Gander, Knorr, and Frederick. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File Number 2434. Schomacker, Gilman, Jacob, Knorr, Keeler, and Curran.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objections, the motions prevail. Announcements. I recognize a member from Anoka, Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 11 a.m. Thursday, May 8th, 2025.
Representative Niska moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 11 a.m. Thursday, May 8th, 2025. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails. Representative Niska.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Niska moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 11 a.m. Thursday, May 8th, 2025.